Hey everyone, Michael Amagon here with another episode of Esports Wrap. This week we're going to be having a conversation with a person who's a former gamer who just took his Gen Z esports company public. This is going to be a very interesting conversation though, because he's been a little bit all over the place when it comes to the esports gaming and now what he's doing with his business, which is actually a number of things. So, with that in mind, I would like to introduce our guest, Steven Salz, if I got that last name right.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay,
Works.
great. Steven, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Sure, yeah. I'm Steven Salz. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Rivalry. We're a esports-focused sportsbook launched in August of 2018 and have been operating since. And then me personally used to play games when I was younger, like a lot of people my age. So nothing unique in that, but did play semi-competitive in Rainbow Six with my twin brother. And then we played we were very addicted to World of Warcraft for about 4 to 5 years, which is also pretty similar to a lot of people in my demographic. So, yeah, played that game all the way into university and then stopped then, which was a good decision for a few different reasons. And then, professionally went into capital markets. So I worked in investment banking, but on the research side. So basically, providing and writing research reports on different stocks and strategies and all this kind of stuff. And then was continuing to play a lot of games, mostly Counter-Strike, and then got interested in what was happening in the skins marketplaces. So when 2012, Valve released the arms deal updates, so you had Dota 2 and CSGO skins trading, was doing a bit of that just like myself and buying skins, and then met these two guys, Ryan and Kevin, in 2015, out of 2015, I think, that were running a place called Loot Market, which was one of the bigger marketplaces for Dota skins and then also CSGO skins, and just kind of partnered up with them, left my job in capital markets, and then started to raise money and develop what would become Rivalry back then. Yeah.
Okay. So, I noticed you mentioned Loot Market. I see here
Yep.
that it's currently offline. Is there a particular
Yes,
reason
it is.
why you guys shuttered that?
Valve shut us down. We didn't. We didn't.
Oh,
We didn't choose to shut it down, but it was, yeah. I mean, us and a ton of the marketplaces in one shot. They basically shut us all down. There's a few that still operate. Honestly, what happened was is skins gambling, which we didn't do any skins betting, but skins gambling attracted like a huge amount of negative attention to the space. And then it was interesting because our whole thing, the same as it is at Rivalries, we're like very transparent and very out there, and we say it like it is. And we were almost, that was almost to a fault because it put like a target on us. We were like the most vocal about all the things that were happening and being honest about everything. And again, we did not operate a skins betting platform, but ultimately it just drew tons of negative attention to the skins space in general, marketplaces, gambling sites, whatever it may be. And then Valve just kind of went and started, you know, chopping people down, which included us in 2017. That was it.
that. Yeah, I remember that whole time. That was something. I know that got
Yeah.
a lot of people frustrated, especially those persons that used to make some good money selling their skins.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. That was weird. It was just like a lot of weird characters. There's just some people were doing it legitimately. We met some people that even flew into, we were in Toronto and spent some time with them. It was just like it's really strange corners of the internet, and not totally unsurprisingly, many of them have like resurfaced as like NFT guys now, which probably isn't the most surprising thing in the world. So yeah, it's been weird.
That is a question. Do you want to a little bit later jump down the realm of NFTs just a little bit with me?
Sure, why not? Yeah.
Sounds great. So I see here that you were also a director in some place called Play VIG.
Yep.
Can you tell us a little bit about that and how that kind of correlates to Rivalry? I'm
Yeah.
also seeing another group that you're a part of, or that you co-founded, PMLML.
Yeah, yeah. So PMML is just the parent company to Rivalry, and then it actually rebranded when we went public. It's PMML Corp or Pummel Corp. The name has some really ridiculous story that's pointless, but it owned, the way that sports betting companies work is you have like the parent company, and then every jurisdiction you get a license, you have like a subsidiary that holds the license because you need a local company to hold the license in that place. So, for example, the Isle of Man, which is our main license, has Rivalry Limited, holds that license. Australia, where we have a conditional license that should be going live shortly. We have like Rivalry Australia, PTY Limited or something like that. And then it's all like under the parent. The parent was called Pummel, and it confused the hell out of everybody because they're like, what's that? We always had to explain it. So we renamed it as we went public to just Rivalry Corp, just to like simplify everything. Yeah. So that's the same thing. Play Vig or Play VIG. It actually still exists, and it's like kind of almost relaunching in a way. But that is the way I describe it always. It's like inverted Twitch. So when you watch Twitch, you watch an ad, and a percentage of the ad revenue goes to the streamer. Play Vig is
Yeah.
like the opposite. Before you play a game, you watch a full video ad, and part of the revenue or the CPM of the ad goes to you. So you basically are monetizing your own gameplay, and then you can use the percentage of the CPM that you receive to actually, like, you can actually cash out if you like, and just take straight cash out if you'd like. So it kind of has like a series of like competitions and quests. It's almost like, player versus player for money. But what a lot of people have found that have built those products, because so many come around and then so many fail, is gamers have huge loss aversion on their own skill. So you put $5 on yourself, and then when you lose, you're like, screw this, I'm out.
Yeah.
And what this is, you never put your own money in. It is real cash because you're watching ads, but you're just, again, if you watch ads to watch people on Twitch, you're just doing the inverse of that before you play a game, and then you monetize like yourself essentially.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's see. I know Rivalry is a thing, and it is like you mentioned, a esports book, well, a bookie site essentially. Can you tell us a little bit more about Rivalry and how that kind of came about and what you guys are currently doing?
Sure. So we were running Loot Market in 2016. We had a feeling, not that it was going to get shut down, but we had just had a sense that building businesses in esports or gaming outside of the publisher is really difficult, as I think a lot of people have learned in the last couple of years. This is like an extremely difficult industry to build a business in. The publisher has to have so much monopoly. There's total
Yeah.
asymmetry. There's like complete asymmetry in the power dynamics as well. It's not like traditional sports where the NHL does not own the intellectual property to the game of hockey. You and I can go play somewhere and charge someone to watch us, and no one's going to show up and say we're using their IP commercially. Esports and gaming is like that, and it's like so difficult if you're not the publisher to do anything here. So, and we were really exposed to that with Loot Market because it obviously relied on Valve's API. You had to use Steam to log in, and it was just super vulnerable. So we were looking at the space more from the perspective of like investor, but also what else could we build that could be compelling, because we wanted to stay in the space. And the boxes we had would be things that are totally API agnostic, because we were so exposed to Valve's API using Steam. We're like, we don't want any business that relies on a publisher's API, too risky. We wanted something that was game cycle agnostic, because we said you can't predict the longevity of a new piece of IP. Like, new game comes out, you don't know how popular or how, it's just impossible to know. Like, the publishers are like, very light guardrails on a bowling alley. That's all they can really do to influence success. Too dangerous to place a bet on one game. And then the other is IP agnostic. We didn't want anything that could be construed as commercializing someone else's IP or tripping over that in any meaningful way. And sports betting on esports was the thing that really, to our belief is still to this day, really is one of the few things, maybe outside of like some media related assets, is one of the few things that ticks all those boxes. So if you're a sports book, we are regulated by a sports betting regulator. We can offer betting on anything that has integrity, like how much rain is going to fall in Dublin tomorrow. We can put that on the site if we wanted. So it does not touch the IP. We don't use any APIs from publishers, and we don't overly invest in any particular game. So if somebody, Valorant, for example, didn't exist a year or so ago, now it exists, it's becoming popular, more people are betting on it. Odds get created for it, we put it on the site, and that's it. Like, it's it's different from an esports team where you fund and finance an entire roster, build a whole thing around it, and all of a sudden, people don't want to watch Apex anymore, so screw it, we're out. And you've like gone really all in. So yeah, so that was the thesis. And we'd also built, we had success with Loot Market. We felt we knew how to build like consumer products. We had a great software development team. We knew how to build teams, knew how to build companies. We were just like excited about what was happening in the space, and we ended up building Rivalry.
Okay. So you mentioned regulating. What about places like the Esports Integrity Commission? And, they kind of try to keep an eye on the things that kind of can go wrong when it comes to betting or, manipulation of matches, that kind of thing.
Yeah, we're a member of ESIC. They're the best thing that esports currently has from that perspective. Like, I think they catch a lot of flack online. I don't think it's totally deserved. I mean, the esports community is really brutal, but I think what a lot of people don't realize, like what they're actually doing on the back end, which nobody sees, because everyone just sees these rulings and they go crazy and criticize the way that they're done. And honestly, like, we don't see a lot of that. What we use ESIC for, what most people do, is we're a member as a sports book. Other sports books are members. Gambling regulators are members, like the UK Gambling Commission, our regulator, and so on. And then you have the tournament organizers as well. And then when matches are happening, if there's any suspicious behavior, either the tournament organizer will basically communicate with ESIC and say, hey, that match kind of looked funny to us. Or if a sports book says, hey, we're seeing really strange betting on this, like anyone else seeing that, and then an alert will go out to everybody. It's like a cross-reporting alert mechanism. We get these relatively frequently. And everyone then cross-reports to say, yeah, this looks funny, this should be investigated. So it's actually like the best mechanism currently in place for everyone collaborating to determine if anything funky is happening competitively. And what a lot of people also don't realize is like, is that system in the sports books that are often the first to identify something wrong, like before Reddit and before Twitter. And it's the same thing in sports, is it actually is increasing the odds that there's like fair play. So we like ESIC, and I think it's the best thing for that right now. And then also there's just like quality measures that we have in place. So our odds provider and all the major quality blue chip odds providers and blue chip sports books, you just have a threshold of stuff you offer. Like we only offer ultra tier 1 and quality tier 2. Anything below that we don't do, and everyone can kind of determine what that is. Anything that I think is less than a $5,000 or $10,000 prize pool, we don't offer, because there's usually integrity associated with prize money. Because if winning an event has less prize money than potentially throwing and placing a bet on a sports book and winning a bunch of money, then people are incentivized to throw a match. And I can honestly say, like, over the 3 and a bit years that we've been operating since the summer of 2018, there's been a single digit number of events that we've actually offered where there's been an issue, which honestly is very low compared to how many matches you think we've offered over 3.5 years of esports. It's a lot. Cricket or tennis in any given year, we'll see more individual proven match throwing events than all of esports. Like people don't realize this. Like it's really, it just seems bad because it's like video gaming, it must be so easy to throw. Like it's really not like that. It's not that. It depends on what you offer. Like so long as you're offering quality things, but it's not bad, and ESIC does a pretty good job. So yeah.
So something that you probably weren't aware of, I'm actually the company I founded is also a member of ESIC, or the Bahamas Esports Federation. So we were actually the first esports federation to become a member of ESIC. So I'm well aware of what you're talking about, and I'm glad to see that you're actually on that as well.
Yeah, we use that system. It's good. It's as good as it can be right now from my perspective. So, yeah.
So you've gone through a lot, and I'm going to touch on just one part before I get to the next question. But in your introduction, you mentioned that you and your twin brother used to play World of Warcraft. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. I was a human priest. He was a gnome mage. We were on the server Drainer. We were in a guild called Resonant Horizon, if anybody remembers that. That was on Drainer. And well, the funny thing about that is, like, we didn't understand. We were just stupid. We were young. We didn't realize that servers were based on time zones. Like, this is just like how naive we were. And we joined the server and leveled to 60 before, because you didn't really need that many people to get to 60 until you were like at 60, and then you wanted to do the big raids, 40 people. You had to really logistically coordinate it. We did not know we were in a Western time zone, like LA type time zone. Like I'm Eastern, we were like on an LA time zone. We did not realize until we hit 60. So we literally got all the way to 60, and we joined a guild, and then it was, and we were in high school, like grade 9 or 10, which is like freshman or whatever in the US. And it's the first raid. It was like Molten Core or something, and it was like, yeah, raid's gonna start at like 10 p.m. our time, which I guess was like 7 p.m. like Central, whatever it is for like Mountain Standard Time. So it was normal for them, and we were like, oh shit, we're screwed. So our entire high school, we were like exhausted because we were like up playing till like 2 a.m., like even later sometimes, and we were like absolutely dead. So that was our World of Warcraft experience. It was fun though. Like, it's really interesting because a lot of really successful people in general, I've noticed from my generation, were WoW players. It's like a really consistent theme. It's funny. Like it's the people that came out of vanilla WoW. Yeah, it is a really interesting group of people, I think. Yeah, so I don't regret it. It was a ton of fun.
When you got into the raids, you needed to be able to manage everybody. You need to have enough information that you can strategize,
Yeah.
you can time things, because a lot of the add-ins and plugins weren't necessarily there, especially
No,
for vanilla.
no, it
That
was
came in
interesting.
like,
Yeah, and it was interesting because as a, I don't know, I was like 14, 15, 16 years old, I guess. It was also the first time that like my brother and I had interacted with like adults is the wrong word, but just like different people in different places. Like now it's so common to where, everyone's in online communities and meeting and interacting with people all over the world. It just wasn't the same in the early 2000s. And WoW, at least for me, I guess like Xbox Live, but then WoW was really the first, especially because the server we were on, it was the first experience we had with like different people. I remember our guild leader worked at NASA, and like I never met somebody, and I was from,
oh wow,
outside of Toronto, like not small town, but relatively smaller. I never met someone that worked at NASA. I thought that was like, that's crazy. Like it was interesting. He was an engineer there. Like you just, yeah, there was like a whole spirit to it, like in like the prime of vanilla that hasn't been, at least from my perspective, has not been like replicated since. There's something like really special about it.
yeah, no. But with that in mind, what's your take on the future for esports and how things have been progressing, even with, because let's not forget, technically rating was competitive video gaming back in the day,
Yep.
especially once they actually brought achievements to World of Warcraft and, world first and all that kind of stuff. So
Yeah, you're asking specific to WoW or just in general?
just in general.
Yeah, it's tough. Like I think like there's all, yeah, I think that at least League of Legends, Dota, CS, and maybe Valorant, some mobile games are going to continue to be the most popular from a competitive perspective and a sports betting perspective. It's really difficult for new games to break in. Maybe Halo, but that's just a bit of a throwback, obviously, and there's a whole like nostalgia element to it. So maybe the new Halo game will be successful. But you think about it, like outside of like known titles, there hasn't been anything that's been breakout in a long time. It still is not super economic for esports teams I know to run competitive rosters. It's like really, really tough. So like esports is a weird place because it feels like it's more growth and more viewership and more excitement than ever, but it's never been harder, I think, economically for teams, or it's only just getting harder and harder economically for teams to make the whole thing work. So obviously we're bullish and expect esports viewership and content to continue to grow, but my view is that the publishers are going to have to increasingly subsidize it, I guess I would say. So the buy-in franchise models I don't think are going to have worked, as people are going to find out, and we've been against them for inception. It just didn't. Yeah, all the dynamics of this industry were working against it being successful. And then I think Rainbow Six has a great structure, the way that they kind of do the rev share. There's no buy-in. The rev share is decent. The roster costs aren't crazy. You can kind of support it depending on the tier that you're in. And then the way that Valorant is doing, like, skins rev share and all this kind of stuff. I know Valorant, some players, is becoming really stupid and expensive, but I think what's people
Oh
are going
yeah.
to, my expectation is that more and more publishers are going to increase the way that they share at least the esports or competitive economy with the teams, so the teams can continue to survive, because the publishers are ultimately always going to be the best monetizers of esports, because what esports is for them is just a marketing spend that enhances the longevity of their IP, and they can monetize it better. That's really all it is for them. Whereas for us, it's like art in the industry, but it's a bit of give and take. Like they don't want to take so much of the pie that it goes to zero, because it does support their IP and they can monetize their IP better. But I think they're going to have to do more and more to support the ecosystem, in my opinion. Like they're going to have to put a little bit more money in. The teams are going to be more incentivized to have rosters. Like I think the esports that are going to succeed long term are the publishers that are going to best economically support the organizations. I expect is what's going to happen. They're going to have to like incentivize big orgs to participate in their games. Is what I think is going to happen.
Yeah, I think the main thing why the buy-in helps, and it's not even much. It's when you run into problems as an organization, or like let's say what happened with League of Legends, and essentially two different organizations stopping someone from being taken by
Yeah, yeah,
another organization.
yeah.
It's little things like that like I can understand. Okay, well, you're doing this so that you have the funds to do it, but at the same time you don't really need it, because you're still getting the revenue from people watching, from the advertisements, from people buying into the game and getting into it and this, that, and the next. And it's like, really? You're still
Yeah,
asking for like $1 million something bucks just to buy in?
yeah, I remember seeing like when mobile COD first was launched. I played that game a bunch when it was first launched. I don't remember. I think it was like in the first or maybe it was like the new COD. It was like in the first 2 or 3 days it had done like 750 million in sales, or some ridiculous number. It was in like a single digit number of days. I remember thinking, I'm like, that's more than the total revenue generated in the entire esports industry in a year, right? Like it's just like Blizzard's, which arguably doesn't necessarily have even a top 5 esports title right now, but Blizzard's, Christmas quarterly cash flow, not even the revenue, like their cash flow is more than the revenue generated in all of esports, like top line. So it's just, it's really, it's tough. It's super tough. And I just think that the publishers are going to have to sweeten the deal more and more to have the relevant esports organizations that bring the viewership and interest to an esport to elect to build rosters and invest and participate in their game. It's just, I think that's what's going to happen longer term for esports.
I would like to see that happen. I'll put it like that.
Yeah.
So with the world developing more and esports being taking its time to, well, actually I shouldn't be saying taking its time, because with COVID it's actually shot up quite a bit in terms of popularity and people getting into the space. But also at the same time you have other companies doing very interesting things, like calling themselves meta.
Yeah.
And so that element of it was a tie into the metaverse. And now you're seeing people creating like virtual avatars, people talking about that, people wanting to look again at VR and try to push VR as like the next step. Though we pushed VR with that a few years ago. But like, what's your take on the metaverse element of things?
I mean, when I used to spend hours bouncing around Iron Forge, I felt like I was in the metaverse. That's pretty much what it was. And I used to play Second Life as well. Not very much. I thought it was really strange, but I played Second Life also like early, like mid 2000s. That game was so weird in the mid 2000s. That was just like the weirdest place you could be on the internet. So I played like Habbo Hotel and all these games that are like also trying to rebrand themselves in the metaverse. Yeah, so I saw a take on Twitter that I think a lot of people regurgitated, and I did the same thing. This isn't my take on it, or this isn't my way to frame it, but I think this is all it is, and it's that the metaverse is just when the percentage of your time while awake, obviously, is spent more looking at a screen than it is not looking at a screen, and that's the metaverse. And I think because people are misconstruing the metaverse as like the Ready Player One, like a literal physical world where you live as like an avatar and do things like that. That will be a component of it, like just entertain. I mean, that's kind of what Fortnite is in some ways. Just like entertainment experiences that are in virtual places will be a part of things people do more. But yeah, the metaverse, what they basically says, the metaverse is more like a moment in time than it is a place. I think that's the best way to think about it. Is like, are we at a place, or are we at a moment in time where the amount of time we spend looking at a screen is less than not looking at a screen? I think we're getting close to that. I certainly spend more time looking at a screen than not in my day-to-day life, and that to me is all this is. I don't know if these avatar-based worlds like Decentraland and there's a ton of them now. I don't know if that is literally going to be the metaverse, or people are going to call it that. It feels like the metaverse is going to be like what the internet was the early 2000s, late 90s, where people talked about the internet the way they talk about the metaverse now, where it seemed like a particular thing, not like a tool or just like a framing of a piece of technology. That feels like what a lot of this metaverse Web3 stuff is that they're just tools. They don't increase your odds of success. You still have to build something amazing, and they're just new tools to play with. And that's really the way that we look at it. And I'm sure, yeah, I mean, gaming is already kind of there in many ways.
So I know a lot of people have been coming from the idea that, like what you mentioned, it's that Ready Player 2, or I don't know if you ever, if you're into anime. And
yep, a little bit.
Okay, so things like Dot Hack, for example, where you're pretty much like connected, or I guess Sword Art Online kind of took the idea as well. But you're wearing this helmet, you go to sleep, and now you're in this virtual world. I think a lot of people are taking metaverse to mean something along those methods, where it's VR. I even think if I remember correctly, there was an article talking about someone actually trying to make a neural link,
Yeah.
so that it actually works with, like, you'll work along when you start to sleep. And I knew someone was going to do it. I was hoping someone wouldn't, but
Yeah, I think anyone that's been playing games a lot, like it sounds like you and I have, doesn't think about the metaverse. Like it feels like the way that people talk about the metaverse is this Ready Player One thing, are people that don't spend time on online communities and aren't messing around in Discord every night or playing games with their friends. It's like anyone I speak to that has lived in that world, like gaming, esports, whatever, doesn't see this as something overly novel. It feels like the rest of the world woke up to, oh crap, people spend a lot of time online, like, you know, jumping around in Fortnite. That's the metaverse. Like it feels like a really commercial thing that people who don't understand how people spend time on the internet lately. Like that's all it feels like to me. I mean, yeah, I don't know if it's going to be, yeah, because again, people look at it like there's gonna be one winner. Like, is Facebook's metaverse gonna be like the one, or is it gonna be this one? It's not. I don't see. That's not at all how I think about it, at least. So maybe I'm wrong, but that's not how I think
I,
about it.
I think a lot of people are thinking about this, especially because of the rise of VTubers and
Yeah,
things like that. So
yeah,
they're just jumping to that. And then of course there's the ever popular game on Steam. I won't say the name, but where you run around as avatars.
yes.
So, um, but speaking of games and bringing this back to Rivalry, I noticed that you guys actually have created your own game called Rushlane. Can you tell us a bit more about that? Because I know a little bit earlier you also mentioned about people buying in to the games and stuff like that.
Yeah, so Rushlane is, we call like an MMOGG. It's obviously kind of cheeky play on MMORPG, but yeah, massively multiplayer online gambling game. It's really just like a mix of like Marble Race meets Mario Kart in a cyberpunky world. The same as like, you know, people play those games on Twitch where they join through chat and they see themselves populated into the game. It's the same thing, but just in a regulated context. So you can put a buck behind yourself. So you enter the game, you have to play with other people. You cannot play it alone. You know, usually minimum of 5 up to 25 people. The race takes 1.5 to 2 minutes. The track is completely random every time, like random segments. It's like a cyberpunky type universe with like familiar game elements like Minecraft and Dota and CS:GO type elements. And we pay out proportionally the top 5 winners out of the pot, and that's it. So, and it's same as again these Twitch games, it's completely random. You're not participating in the game. So rather than you betting on, you know, a virtual horse, which is on many other sports betting sites, you are the horse. Like you see yourself enter the game, your name appears. We're gonna have more customization on avatars and stuff like this as well, as you can imagine. But it was built as like a really entertainment and creating community. We don't have slots on our site, for example. We don't have people playing like Egyptian or jungle themed slots. It's just not really what we're about. And you know, a slot you can enter money in every like 2 to 3 seconds. Like you just hit it, it goes, you hit it, it goes. We just don't like experiences like that. Like you have to play this game with other people. It takes a couple minutes from like the lobbying to entering to playing to winning. Like you can't sit there and play it again and again. Like the most you can spend in 3 minutes is $1. Like it's the max you could spend. So it's not that kind of thing. And it was built also to be streamed. So major partners of ours, we run an event called Rushlane After Hours. It's in like a Blade Runner cyberpunky underground bar. They're kind of chilling and hanging in it with their community. And then we've had, you know, 10, 11, 12,000 concurrent people watching streamers play this game. Their fans try to join and play with them. And it's just like a whole community entertainment wrapper around it. And it just was the first game to introduce this game lore, this world that we're creating. And we're going to continue to add games into it that are, again, community and entertaining, not repetitive slot machine, but base games and like low stakes and just kind of fun. And then creating more of that, again, community in the world where people can just have a place to like hang out. They don't have to necessarily play games. They can just like hang out in like the Rushlane world and, you know, choose to play games or not, or just hang with other people and live chat on the site or whatever it may be. That's it. It's just like a low stakes, low pressure, chill environment. On Rivalry, and the first game is this racing game, and we'll kind of keep adding into it.
Okay. So is it just, how does the lobby work? Like, do you need a special code to get into that one streamer's lobby? Do you just jump in and then
you just jump in? So yeah, like the lobbies have different names. If it's busy, then there will be multiple lobbies that open up. If it's not, then there's only one. You join, you just have to have, you know, registered on Rivalry from a legal jurisdiction, over the age of 18, all that kind of stuff. Obviously have deposited money in the site. You enter the game by putting $1 stake in, and then that's it. You populate in. Right now it's more static, where there is like a waiting lobby area, and you will see like your character appear and your name, and then when enough people join, it starts and there's a live chat. But again, we're adding more mechanics and like free form to it over time to like expand it into like, yeah, almost like you're jumping around Ironforge. There'll be like that kind of equivalent potentially. We're just like chilling in the world, and you can maybe enter a game, maybe not. You can just hang out. So that's what that's kind of the momentum we're trying to build behind it.
Okay. And now I know I saw where there seem to be things that kind of block you or like slow you down or whatnot in this game.
Yeah.
Like, what's that all about?
Yeah, it's like Mario Kart. There's like stuff that will interact with other players, like you hit explosions that slow you down. There's power-ups that can speed you up. We're adding more of that stuff in where, yeah, it's like picking up power-up, again, the same as picking up a power-up ability in a Mario Kart game, and you can interact and bounce off other players. So it's just adding more features like that just to make it fun, make it more entertaining, and yeah.
Okay. So to jump back into Rivalry itself, you guys have an app for that, or at least it seems like to be an app, or is that just a website?
It's the website. It was built mobile first, so it just works really well on people's phones. With our current license, we can't have a mobile app, but with some of our regulated markets that we have coming up, we will be able to have a mobile app. So our expectation is sometime next year we will have a mobile app in addition to web. But honestly, almost everybody uses the web version on their phone anyways.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how exactly does that work? Is it that, a tournament is coming up, you guys post about it and people start betting on it, or like which type of events do you really focus on?
We definitely focus on the 3 biggest titles like CS, Dota, League, and even not just for us, but globally. Those 3 games are about 90% of esports betting. So it's just how it's been for a long time. It's the same thing for us. So we have super active marketing efforts. We've got 20 plus social media channels. The monthly engagement and following on Rivalry is more than the aggregate of all of our peers in esports betting. So very followed kind of social accounts. We'll push out major events that are happening on there. And then our influencers, we got like 150 plus influencer network now, esports teams, original content we produce. They'll talk about the events or just get people kind of motivated to check out the site. But I'd say the one thing at Rivalry, which is probably different than other sports books, is especially if you look at our socials, we do not talk about sports betting. So we get people excited by what's coming up, and we're very memey, ridiculous, and clipping things and talking about what's going on in the scene, but we don't tell people go bet here right now. Like that's not the style of marketing we've ever done. It's more Red Bull style, where Red Bull, in my opinion, is like one of the greatest marketing companies in the world. They have one product though. They just sell, if we're going to really simplify it, it's sugared water with caffeine in it. Like that's really all Red Bull is. But
yeah, pretty much.
But the marketing is insane. They own a Formula One team. They run the most extreme events in the world. Any extreme athlete, if you're sponsored by Red Bull, you've like made it. Or the same thing in gaming now. Like there's a whole ecosystem they've created, but really they make billions of dollars a year selling energy drinks. And all it's done for is when you go into the grocery store and you're walking to the energy drink aisle, and your hand is more likely to go to the Red Bull can because like the brand is so seared in your brain and you associate with things that are like cool and amazing and like extreme, right? That's kind of how we do things. We're not trying to like shove betting down people's throats. It's more just like creating great experiences, supporting great people, and being just like a relevant brand in the space. So that if people are thinking about, hey, want to throw $5 on the League of Legends finals or the Worlds or whatever, then Rivalry comes to mind. Like that's how we market.
And you mentioned that you have a few teams. I know I've seen names like Fnatic.
Yep.
If I'm going down this list, but I remember seeing others as well. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, we sponsored Fnatic. That was like our first big sponsorship in 2018. Then Furia in Brazil. Then 00 Nation, which used to be called Oplano, which is another CSGO Brazilian-based team. Boom Esports, which is a kind of Southeast Asia-based team that we recently just sponsored. A bunch of like other smaller ones. We sponsored like Beast Coast, which is other with their South American Dota roster. So we've done, and then even much smaller teams. I'm trying to remember the names right now, but we've supported when teams go on good runs that are clearly very small, brand new. In many cases, the money from us is what supports like the entire team, like all the salaries, everything. We will do that as well. Like we don't always just go for like the name brands of the world. We've done a lot of smaller organization sponsorship where if a team clearly has resource needs, then we step in, and it's not sweat off our back, and we support the team and support what they're doing. That's great. So we do a lot of that, and we do the same thing with influencers. Like we do work with some of the biggest influencers in our key markets for sure. but we work with many like much smaller influencers, talking like influencers that do, sub 50, sub 20 views, like concurrent views on Twitch. So we go like up and down the whole chain, and it's just like part of the brand and everything we do. And the same thing with like the events we run. Like we've run events that we don't take bets all on Rivalry. They're purely community-based events that are supporting like the ecosystem and relevant markets, and that's it. And we do all stuff like that.
Okay, interesting. So I have seen an interview that you had on Forbes, and you kind of got into some interesting topics with them. And I've seen a number of other ones as well, like on Medium with Authority Magazine, Cheddar. But there was one part that really got my attention, and it was actually the one on Medium that was talking about the 5 things you need to create a highly successful career in esports.
Yeah, it's just those 5 things. That's all you need. Yeah.
And tell me if you would like to elaborate on any of these, but
Sure.
I'm just going to be reading this off for my viewers. The first one was genuinely be passionate about gaming as an idea. And that is not so much an idea. Well, it's the difference between an idea and just enjoying playing video games, because playing games will wear off versus you just wanting to be passionate about making this work.
Yeah, I think like a lot of people want to get into the industry because like I love video games. I mean, so does like more than 50% of the like world now. Like it's just, of course. So I think you have to be really excited by like even just like from a creative and like artistic perspective, like you have genuine passion and interest in it as like a creative outlet, I think is really important. And then also the idea of like what gaming can do is like, are you a believer in its ability to kind of connect people and create create strands between different communities and different people, and can it be like a positive force for humanity even in a general way? Like is it a positive thing for people to be playing games and connecting and communicating with one another? Do you think gaming can do, it's good for people's mental health, like all this kind of stuff? Like I personally think gaming as a medium is like a critical entertainment category for humanity, and I have like a deep belief in that, and like that is important for me. But yeah, if I just like video games and was addicted to WoW, I'm like, oh, maybe I should work in the video game industry. Like it just, I mean, there's so many people like that, and they just burn out because it's and also it kind of kills your passion for like video games because you're like, you're mixing those things, right? So yeah, there's a difference between just liking it because like it's fun and you love playing COD with your buddies versus like you have a genuine like passion and interest in like what gaming is about for society.
Yeah, a lot of people that will just take on gaming and streaming for that matter. And they'll just burn themselves out trying to hit the metrics and stuff like that, and then they just lose. A lot of them end up losing the quote unquote passion for just playing games, or they'll take a break for a long period of time just because they needed that space to untangle everything.
Yeah, you see this in like every creative outlet. Like if you watch, there's these great videos online, I love watching them, of like filmmakers and even game producers where they describe, they're like 20-minute videos where they describe like one scene in a game or like one scene in a movie. Like you can watch the Parasite director 20 minutes do a breakdown of the first like 15 seconds of Parasite, or you can watch like Hideo Kojima does a breakdown of like a Death Stranding cutscene, which is like a 30-second cutscene. The amount of time and energy, like he talks about things that not a single person noticed but him. But that, and also you have to be that deeply into it, but those are the people that are often successful. Like you have to geek out about things like at that level to really make it a career, in my opinion.
So your next one was be kind, and that's more so because, well, the community's small. Quite literally, you run around, you'll meet someone who knows another person who you may have not had the greatest relationship with, and if you say something bad, it's probably going to end up back at that person.
Yeah, also like it's just, that's for like any profession for sure, and just in general in life, but in esports in particular. And there's like a lot of gatekeeping, at least I found sometimes in the space. Like people are very like protective of their community, they don't want to let people in. that just long term doesn't work either. Like if things become popular and mainstream, even though you thought you were one of the OGs, like this is just a thing that happens sometimes. You have to kind of accept it, and you're better off trying to be, there as a active supporter and participant and encouraging and educating people rather than being an ass. So I think that's just important.
And that kind of lends into point number 3, which is leave the quote unquote Reddit personality at home, aka don't be so sarcastic. Don't be an I told you so kind of person.
Yeah, you want to wish success for people. Like the most successful people are often the ones that also want other people to succeed, and when someone else has a success that you think you could have done, it's not like an ego hit to you. You should be supportive of it. So I find, the same thing in gaming is like, just because of the type of people that happen to go into it, is very like Reddit personality often, and in a professional environment, I'm not even going to say corporate, but just like in a professional environment where you have to collaborate with other people, doesn't work. Like you want to water ideas like they're flowers and let them grow. You know what I mean? Like that's to me how you can succeed. And in general, that's how I do everything. Is is to think about that. Yeah.
So, just as a quick thing for people listening, you can be a critique, but don't be an ass. Like, don't just bash someone down. Give suggestions, give feedback. Otherwise, you're not really critiquing.
Yeah, we tell people listen to the company as well. Like the culture at Rivalry is to give like very candid, transparent feedback, and there's a nuance though to doing that. You can do that as like be like an ass about it, and people feel you're just like trying to give it to them. And you can give people direct feedback in a way where they know you're trying to elevate them and make them the best version of themselves, and it's coming from like a place of love. And that's like a huge difference though. It's really hard to strike that, but yeah, the latter is the right way to do it, because giving critical feedback is super important, but it's the way that you deliver it, definitely.
Which also goes into the offer to help elements of things.
Yep.
I know people will be trying a lot of different projects, and it's not just esports, this is just in general. People will be trying a lot of different methods, projects, interests, and if you can help them, why not?
Yep, definitely.
And the last one that you said was to be open-minded to new games that rise in popularity. Wow. You want to get into that one a bit more?
Sure. I mean, I kind of shat on the Overwatch League, I can admit that, but I didn't shit on Overwatch. I think the same with like Apex. I remember Apex had like a massive rise, then kind of fall really quickly. That's kind of coming back a little bit, but yeah, again, like people are very sequestered in their games and their communities, and if something comes in that might like threaten that, like it's the new MOBA or the new battle royale, it's like they want to actively wish it to not succeed and kind of shit on it just because it protects their little fiefdom. So not a good thing to do. It goes back to all the other points, is you want to wish success upon people that are trying new things. It's very hard to build something and put it out in the world and try new things. It's like the hardest thing to do. Businesses, whatever, creative, doesn't matter. So same with this, like, yeah, new games come out and like, there were hundreds of people that worked like extremely, extremely hard on it, and give it a second to breathe.
Yeah. So I would like to thank you for coming on the show. I think that was, actually, I'm going to have to cut that part out just a little bit.
No problem.
What's your thoughts on how the world is moving with this whole blockchain and NFT thing, especially how NFTs are some of the game developing companies are trying to bring NFTs into their space and getting some good clapback?
Yeah, I think that will not be inevitable, but it will be more commonplace, and people are going to have to come to accept it. Like an example I give to people is, I mean, I go back to WoW always, because it's just so much of what happened there to me is just what is being fulfilled now, because I guess the technology is there. But I tell people like who don't understand the value of NFTs that are of the same kind of demo from me and come from the same place as me, of which there's many, is if you played WoW, of the Ragnaros, which was like the hammer that you could put together if you killed Rag, and then there's a whole other thing that goes to it. And I remember it's like Solfran Hand of Ragnaros. That's right. I remember on the BattleNet forums, the first guild and the first person to get that, there was like a crappy iMovie film little thing that somebody put up. I don't even think it was on YouTube at the time. I don't remember what it was, but it was like the guy walking through I think it was Alliance. It was a guy walking through Iron Forge, like slow, like doing walk and then walking out to the front and then like crafting it, and then everyone's like going insane, like right outside the front of Iron Forge. And I remember thinking, like, could you imagine if that, like, because now we're all 15 years older and have more money and more disposable income. Like, could you imagine if like that was an NFT? As in, like, put the NFT aside because NFTs are just like memey and ridiculous to say it sometimes. But just imagine like that was a original. Like, you knew that the first one crafted ever in the history of World of Warcraft was that one. It was a verifiable original, and you could own it. Like, when I say own it, yeah, you could own it in a wallet, and you could, you are the literal owner of that item in the game. Like, that's it. Like, you are the owner of it. And if you want to take it into WoW and play it on your character, great, but you own it. And you can display it in your wallet or whatever you want to do, and it's kind of like a flex. Like, I know, myself included, there are many people that are now in their late 20s and early 30s that played the game at that time, or that, to me, for my generation that was into that, it was like a zeitgeist moment on the internet when that happened. Like, that was just like a big moment in like the history of the game. There are people that I know would spend a shitload of money to own that one. 100% guaranteed. Like, I would want to own it.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, I honestly would want to own it, and I would pay decent money to own it. So, and it's the same with even like the first like ride kill, or the first, like the first like guild to beat, like, kill like Blackwing Lair. Imagine like all 40 members got like an original token that said like, you were the first people in the history of this game to clear this. Like, people want to own that. Like, that's like to me, that's part of like internet history. So like, that's all it is. I think every single thing being NFTs and making it so ubiquitous, like, a lot of stuff is going to have no value. Like, obviously, if like every single item in the world is an NFT, then like, what's the value of like one versus like the 1 million? Like, it doesn't matter. But those, and it being transportable between games, like, I don't know if that's ever going to happen. I don't know why publishers would do that. Like, why would COD want somebody who spent $1,000 on Val skins to then take it into COD, and then the COD ecosystem makes no money? Like, I don't really know. Maybe there's like a transaction fee to bring it into the game, but it's just it's ridiculous to think about that ever happening. I think the value of it is definitely going to be, though, if there is a way in these moments for game publishers to embrace NFTs, to memorialize really big things that happen where you're a first of a something, and it is like a moment in time, a moment in internet history that's relevant. That's like memorabilia that you would want to own, like for me at least. Like, I think it is. So that's where I see value for sure. But a lot of the stuff is just marketing now, Yeah.
Well, yeah. As you were talking, my mind went, and it might have been because you mentioned it. It went back to Ready Player One, and like his whole quest to do these things first, and like get to the prize. And it's like, did NFTs come because of this, or was this like just touching on it?
Yeah, it's like it's even like in the physical world. People want to own Michael Schumacher's helmet when he won his first world championship. Maybe like
True.
that has value, and it's going to sit in your place somewhere. 99% of the world's not going to see it. Maybe your friends are going to see it, but it's no different than an NFT that you flex online. Like, they're both things people aren't going to really see ever. So I don't see the difference between those two things. So yeah, like, I would love, like, I always use the rag example because people that played that game, like, that helps them like make it click. I said, like, imagine you could own the original rag hammer, like the first one ever crafted in the history of that game. Yes, like, people like that. People spend a lot of money on that right now. Absolutely guaranteed. Yeah. There are a lot of rich crypto bros that came out of WoW that would spend a lot of money for that, in my opinion.
Yeah. I literally have a friend that's in one of the other islands. He showcased his because he's been working cryptocurrencies for a while, and he showed us his portfolio, and I didn't know this man was this rich. Holy crap. But that's just simply how things are.
One day. Yeah.
I know, right? But Steven, I would like to thank you for coming on the show. It's been great talking with you and just learning more about Rivalry, the things that are happening, and just this conversation on a whole. Before you go, though, is there anything you'd like to leave the audience with?
No, I really enjoy the conversation as well. I appreciate it, but nothing left for me.
Okay, great. Well, folks, if you want to find out more about Rivalry, you can just simply go to what is it, rivalry.gg?
Nope, .com.
Sorry.
Yep.
.com.
Yep.
So rivalry.com. Do feel free to check out the Rushlane game. and we may find each other inside the lobbies. But until next time, folks, take care.
Thanks for having me.